Okay, animating, continuing with After Effects animation techniques here. Still basic keyframing, but there's a bit more to cover. We're still working with this little yellow square here. And first I just want to go over some timing techniques. Let's say that we want this yellow square to start on the left side of our screen. Actually, let's take it all the way off screen. Why not? Let's have it start off screen. And in, let's see, this whole timeline is 10 seconds long. You know what? That's too much time. I'm going to go to my composition settings and change my duration to 5 seconds. That'll be good. All right, so over 5 seconds time, what I'd like to see is my yellow square fly out to the center of my screen and hold there for a few seconds and then fly off on the right side and be off screen again. So I have to think about the tempo, the pacing of this thing. So I'm going to say at frame 0, I would like the position to be where I currently have it off screen. So I need to access position. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to call up position only. Instead of going to this little twirly and opening it up and seeing all the transform stuff, I just want position. I can narrow it down to just position by hitting the letter P on your keyboard. That's going to keep things very clean for me and not have to look at too much other stuff, and I won't screw up. I know I'm just working with position here. So at frame 0, I'm going to start recording my information. I'm going to click on the stopwatch, and it currently has an X value of negative 103.2. So how fast would I like it to fly out? I might say that I would like it to fly out in 2 seconds. So I'm going to move my playhead to 2 seconds, and I want this square to be back in the middle, so I could grab it and drag it, and while I'm dragging it, I'm holding down shift to make sure that if I drag it up or down, it's not going to go up or down. It's staying perfectly constrained to that horizontal axis there. That is a way I can do it on the composition window. I'm going to hit undo just to bring it back to where we were. Or you can just grab the value of that X and start sliding it in the timeline. And that way you're only moving the X value, not the Y. Kind of hard to tell where my center is, so maybe I'll hit my action and title safe up, which is the quote key. It's the equivalent of going here and saying, all right, title and action safe. That gives me my center crosshair. So that gives me the ability to say, yep, that's about center right there. So what I end up with is a path from point A to point B, and it's occurring from frame 0 to 2 seconds. If I drag my playhead over that time in the timeline, I see that I move from off screen to the center. Alright, I'll turn my action safe off just so I don't have that up there anymore. What I would like to do is hold at the center for 1 second. And what I'm going to do is go to 3 seconds, because that's 1 second ahead of 2. If I want this square to stay in the same spot, I just have to tell After Effects that even at 3 seconds, I would like it to be in the same spot as it was at 2 seconds. So I need to insert another keyframe that has the same value as the second keyframe at 2 seconds. I can do this 2 ways. The way that most people intuitively go to is copy and paste, which would totally work. That takes me to selecting keyframes. So here I have 2 keyframes in my timeline. The first one at frame 0, the second one at 2 seconds. When they are not selected, they are just light gray in color. As soon as I click on one, it turns yellow. That means I have a selected keyframe. So I've just selected this second keyframe. I could now go to Edit, Copy, and with my playhead being at the new point in time that I would like that keyframe to exist, I'm going to go to Edit, Paste, and it will automatically drop in that exact keyframe. So now what I would have is 3 keyframes. The first 2 go from off screen to center, and then the second 2, there's no change. So you're not going to see any movement between those 2 keyframes. So that's the first way to get that keyframe there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit delete with that key selected, and it's gone. There's this other little button that you can push in the timeline window off to the very right edge of whatever attribute it is that you're keyframing. In this case, it's position. We have 2 arrows, one that points left, one that points right. In the middle of it is this sort of empty keyframe image. And if you just hover your mouse over it, it'll say add or remove keyframes. So this will automatically lay down a keyframe at whatever current value or coordinate your layer is at for that attribute. So I'm going to go boop and just click on that, and the result is it lays down a keyframe. So now I have 2 keyframes that are exactly the same because I just used this button here. Now if I go to the end of my timeline and either grab my square from the composition window or change the value down here in my timeline and move it off screen. There we go. I now have a more choreographed move where I'll do a RAM preview. If you forget how to do a RAM preview, composition, preview, RAM preview. So there we go. We move in for 2 seconds, we hold for 1, and then move off in 2 seconds. And that is sweet. Alright, so we have this move that takes 2 seconds to complete, a 1-second hold, and then another 2-second move. If you end up in a situation where you would like things to happen faster or slower, the good news is you've already got the keyframes laid down with the coordinates that you need to make the move happen. All you're talking about is a temporal change, a change in the timeline. And keyframes can be moved. So maybe I want this to all happen, the first move to happen in 1 second. So I could put my playhead to 1 second, take my second keyframe, and drag it to the new location. If I hold down Shift while I do it, it kind of gets magnetic and snaps. Shift is a huge helper when moving things around, especially in the timeline. It snaps to the end of layers or other keyframes or where your playhead is. It's a great technique to get in the habit of. So now I have this first move from off screen to center occurring in 1 second's time, and then a 2-second pause, and then a 2-second move. If I wanted to keep it sort of mirrored, maybe I go to 4 seconds here, and I'll grab my very last keyframe and drag it, oh come on now, boop, drag it to the 4-second mark, and now I'll have a move, there we go, that occurs at a faster rate, and I have a pause that is now twice as long. So if I said that I'd like to keep it proportional to my first arrangement, where it moves in from off screen to center, holds, moves off, but the hold is about half of the duration as my move, then I'd want to go to 1 second and 15 frames, which is 1.5 seconds. And then I could move both keyframes over to this location. And to grab multiple keyframes and move them, you can do 2 things. You can drag a box over those keyframes, see how they're highlighting as I drag this box over. Or you can simply click on one, hold down the Shift key, click on another one, and now those are both selected. They're both yellow. So if I were to drag those over, hold down my Shift key, now I have a proportional animation similar to how I first set it up, but it's going to move across the screen, and in half the time that it took the square to move, it'll hold and then move off screen again, and this is the result. There we go. So that's doing some keyframe management, moving them around in the timeline. Understand that I'm not changing any of the coordinates. All I'm doing is just changing their location in time. It's a temporal change, which will make things occur at a different rate of speed. The closer keyframes are together, the faster that move will occur. The further those keyframes are apart in time, the slower that movement will occur. One more little note here about keyframe management is that you can directly jump to previous or next keyframes by using these arrows that surround the keyframe button. So that's a nice thing, just to make sure that you're landing exactly at a moment in time where you need an event to happen, or you need to synchronize some other movement or change on another layer, something along those lines. So these arrows, that's what those little guys do. Okay, so just to touch base on a few, I'm going to get rid of these keyframes, and then I'm going to reset my position. I just held down Control, I'm clicked on the word position, and here is reset. Now I'm back in the middle, no more movement. Just want to quickly talk about the shortcuts for each attribute of the transform properties. So you have P for position, A for anchor point, S for scale, R for rotation. Those all make sense. P for position, S for scale, so on. The tricky one is opacity. Opacity is also known as transparency. So opacity is T. So either think of opacity or transparency. And it's really nice to use those keyboard shortcuts just because it keeps a cleaner timeline and lets you focus just on the one property that you might want to be working with. And there are a few other shortcuts that you'll learn over time as well. All right, so that is dealing with time and multiple moves and managing the keyframes, and I think we're going to call it good there.